Hello, and welcome to Lamplighter, day number 22. Today we transition in our reading from the book of Genesis to the book of Exodus. Congratulations, you have completed all 50 chapters of the book of Genesis. One of the things we seldom notice, however, if we're just casually thumbing through our Bibles, is that when you turn from the end of Genesis to the beginning of Exodus, there are some 400 plus years of history that occur between those few pages there in our Bibles. You see, we're told at the beginning of Exodus that a new Pharaoh or a new king arises in Egypt who doesn't even know Joseph, who's never even heard of Joseph. And so this king starts to notice that there is this group of people, the Israelites, who are living in Goshen in the land of Egypt, and he starts to feel a little bit threatened by them because he notices that the Israelites are multiplying greatly. And even though there has been no trouble from them so far, he is fearful that an enemy might attack, that the Israelites might be favorable toward the enemy and might rise up themselves and attack the Egyptians. So he decides to be proactive. Rather than allow the Israelites to attack or allow the Israelites to leave, he decides that he's going to put his power over them and make them his slaves. So the Israelite people become the slaves of the Pharaoh and the other leaders in Egypt. After some time of this slavery, the children of Israel continue to multiply, and the Pharaoh continues to feel threatened. And so he makes an edict that all the Hebrew boys born are to be killed. Well, it so happens that Moses, the great leader of Israel coming in the future, is born during this time. And because of the faithfulness of some midwives, they refuse to take Moses' life. Moses' life is spared. His mother makes a basket, coats it with pitch, puts it in the river at the edge of the Nile River, has Moses' older sister Miriam watching it. And you probably remember this one. The daughter of Pharaoh is in the Nile River with her handmaidens, and she's bathing, and she happens to see this basket. She sees that it's one of the Hebrew babies. She takes the baby, and rather than kill it, as her father's edict has declared, she chooses to raise this child as her own. So Moses has all of the advantages of Egypt. He has power, he has wealth, he has education, he has it all. And yet deep down, Moses knows that he is not an Egyptian, but rather he is a Hebrew. One day, after he's grown older, he sees an Egyptian mistreating one of his fellow mankind members, a Hebrew, and so he comes to the Hebrew's defense, thinking that the Hebrew people will see him as their hero or as their deliverer. But he kills the Egyptian, and when it becomes known, others begin to say, "Who do you think you are?" Even those among his own people. When he discovers that his murder of this Egyptian has been found out and that the Pharaoh himself might find out, Moses flees for his life. He flees to the desert of Midian. While he's there, he meets a woman by the name of Zipporah and marries her, and then becomes a shepherd, living in anonymity, you might say, for some 40 years in the wilderness of Midian. One day, Moses is minding his own business. He's leading his flock to the base of the mountain of Horeb, otherwise known later as Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. While he is there, he sees a bush burning. And it catches his attention because the bush is burning but is not being consumed by the fire. When he goes over to take a closer look, the text tells us that an angel of the Lord speaks to him from the flames of that bush and calls Moses to lead his people out of Egyptian bondage. You're probably familiar with the fact that Moses is a rather reluctant leader. Maybe there's a part of him that's saying, "Been there, done that. I tried to lead the people before and they rebelled against me and I ran for my life. That was some 40 years ago. I'm not interested in doing that again." But God calls him. He says, I want you to be my representative. I want you to lead my people out of Egyptian bondage. And it's here where Moses begins to hem and haw and make all kinds of excuses. And I want to reiterate these with us because these excuses probably sound vaguely familiar even to us today. God has a special mission in place for Moses, and Moses is reluctant to take it. Moses' first objection is, who am I that I should lead the people of Israel out of Egyptian bondage? He feels very unworthy. And God's answer basically is this: don't worry about it. I'll be with you. Moses' second objection, after asking the question, who am I? He asks, who are you? What if I go to my fellow Hebrews in the land of Egypt and tell them that I've been sent here on this mission, and they ask who sent me? What shall I say? And this is where God powerfully says, I am who I am. He says, tell them I am sent you. These words are in all capital letters in our Bibles because this is an indication of a very important name for God. In the Hebrew, it's just 4 letters, YHWH. We sometimes pronounce it this way, Yahweh. It is the name for a covenant-making, covenant-keeping God. It is a name he wants to be known by among his people. As a matter of fact, God says, from now on, this will be my name among you. When he's having this discussion with Moses, he wants to make sure Moses recognizes the importance of that name. He says, this is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation. He tells Moses to go on to the people, and the people will listen to him. And yet Moses' third objection is this: well, what if they do not believe me? Or what if they don't listen to me? God has already answered this one. He said they will listen to you. And then he says, okay, Moses, what is this in your hand? Moses was holding a staff. He said, throw the staff down. When Moses does, it turns into a snake. He tells Moses to pick the snake up by the tail, which everyone knows you should never do. But Moses faithfully picks up the snake by the tail, and it becomes a staff in his hand again. Pretty impressive power. Then God says, stick your hand in your cloak. And when Moses sticks his hand in his cloak, he pulls it out. It is leprous, as white as snow. God tells him to put his hand in his cloak again. Moses does so, and when he pulls it out, it is pure and white and clean, just as it was to begin with. Then God says, if they don't believe you, if they don't believe I've sent you, you have these 2 signs: the sign of the staff becoming a snake, the sign of your hand becoming leprous. And even if they don't believe these 2 things, then you can take some water out of the Nile and pour it on the ground and it'll become blood. Basically, God says to every objection Moses has, it is not about you, Moses. I will be with you. The staff that you're holding in your hand is my staff. That's a demonstration of my power. And then Moses says, well, I can't speak. I'm not a good speaker. I'm slow of speech and of tongue. Stephen begs to differ when he tells the Old Testament story before the Sanhedrin in Acts chapter 7. Stephen says that Moses is powerful in speech. But certainly Moses doesn't see himself that way. God gets frustrated with this excuse of Moses, and he says, who made man's mouth? And he even goes so far as to say, is it not I, the Lord, who has made you and who has made your mouth? Now go, he says, I will help you speak. I will teach you what to say. You have no worries. And finally, Moses, for the 5th objection, says, oh God, please send someone else. And God gets angry. And rightfully so. Moses is so reluctant. And finally, God says, I'll send Aaron with you. But I want you to notice throughout this whole scene, and I know we're going a little bit longer than usual today, but this is very important. God calls Moses very plainly. He has specifically a mission for Moses to fulfill. And Moses balks not once, not twice, but 5 times. To every one of his objections, God in one form or another says, Moses, Listen to me. This is not about you. It is not about your strength. It is not about your power. I will be with you. You are simply a representative in my hands. And finally, with his brother Aaron, Moses decides to respond to God's call and go before the Pharaoh. Of course, some exciting things are about to happen as Moses and Aaron approach the Pharaoh for the first time, but we'll read more about that later. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.